Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into something that's, well, it's rapidly changing how many of us work, learn, and even create.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about AI-powered productivity tools.
Hmm.
You've definitely seen them, probably use them, even tools like ChatGPT, promising to, draft your emails in seconds flat,
Right?
or Midjourney, just conjuring up these stunning visuals from, like, a few words, Notion AI trying to bring order to our digital chaos, or Copilot helping programmers write code faster.
Yeah, the list keeps growing.
Exactly. And on the surface, it all sounds incredibly exciting, doesn't it? It's like stepping into some kind of sci-fi future where maybe
Mm.
effort is minimized and output is just maximized.
Absolutely. And the material we're exploring today, it really lays out that initial compelling promise with striking clarity. It highlights how these AI tools are presented and honestly often experienced as genuine game changers. They offer dramatically faster, smarter, and well, undeniably easier ways to tackle tasks across both our personal projects and, our professional responsibilities. That initial pitch it's very powerful.
And that's really where our deep dive starts to get interesting today, because the material we're looking at, it doesn't just stop there. It takes a much more nuanced and frankly provocative look at our increasing reliance on these very tools.
Yeah, it pushes back a bit.
It does. The title itself for this exploration is AI, the Paradox of Productivity. And that word paradox, that's the key, isn't it? It's the key to everything we're going to discuss.
That's absolutely right. What's truly fascinating about this source material isn't just its description of AI's capabilities, which, let's face it, many of us are already pretty familiar with now.
Sure.
It's the fundamental tension it introduces right from the outset. It poses this critical question that kind of cuts against the prevailing narrative of just pure, unadulterated efficiency gains. It asks, are these tools truly making us more efficient? Enabling us to achieve more meaningful outcomes with less effort, freeing us up for higher level work? Or are they maybe in a subtler, perhaps more insidious way, simply making us more dependent on their assistance, potentially eroding our own capabilities in the process?
And that's the absolute heart of the paradox,
Yeah.
right? The speed, the convenience, the sheer ease they offer, that's undeniable. Nobody's arguing that.
Yeah.
But what might be the hidden cost? The cost to our skills, our creativity, maybe even our very way of thinking. So our mission for you in this deep dive is to really unpack this dual nature that the material presents. How does AI simultaneously amplify what we're capable of, allowing us to do things we couldn't do before, or at least not nearly as quickly,
Mm-hmm.
while also carrying this potential risk, this possibility of eroding core skills, maybe dampening our originality, and perhaps even diminishing our capacity for sustained effort, what the source might call our grit?
Yeah, that grid factor is interesting.
So let's jump into the material and explore the arguments and the examples it uses to illustrate this really complex relationship. So let's begin where the source material itself begins, which is by acknowledging the very real, tangible benefits that have fueled this current AI boom. It definitely doesn't shy away from highlighting the upside.
No, it gives credit where it's due.
It states quite clearly that the promise of AI boosting productivity isn't just, marketing hype. It's often a lived reality for people. More done, and done in significantly less time.
That's the headline, and it's a compelling one, for sure. The material highlights how these AI tools dramatically accelerate a whole range of tasks that used to be serious bottlenecks, things that demanded considerable human time and, frankly, focused effort.
Right, things we used to dread sometimes.
Exactly. Think about all the stuff that used to take hours, maybe even days. Drafting written content, creating visual assets from scratch, writing or debugging code, summarizing lengthy documents or research papers, just wading through information overload,
Oh yeah, the summarizing.
or even just getting started with brainstorming, right? That blank page anxiety. AI offers shortcuts, sometimes massive ones, for all of these.
And the material uses some really specific, quite relatable examples to bring this whole thing to life. Take the use of tools like ChatGPT for writing and research.
Hmm.
It describes how students, marketers, entrepreneurs, really anyone who writes as part of their job, are using it for, well, everything. From generating initial email drafts, structuring complex outlines for articles or presentations,
Yeah, getting that structure down.
or even just taking a jumble of thoughts you have and translating them into clean, coherent text. The material suggests that for many individuals, this can save hours, maybe even entire workdays, every single week. It kind of removes the intimidation of the blank page.
Right, the sheer velocity it enables for text-based tasks is, well, it's transformative for many. And then you've got the visual side, with tools like Midjourney.
Ah, yes, the images.
The source material points out how freelancers, content creators, even small business owners can generate pretty professional-looking visuals in seconds or minutes, often from just a simple text description.
It's kind of amazing when you see it happen.
It is. Compare that, as the source implicitly does, to the traditional process. Hiring a designer, explaining the concept, waiting for drafts, going through revisions, dealing with complex software.
The back and forth.
Exactly. The material implies this skips steps that could previously consume days or even weeks of effort and iteration.
Weeks. I mean, that kind of acceleration in creative workflows it's profound. And a core takeaway the source identifies from this initial upside is how effectively AI removes friction.
Yes, that concept of removing friction is absolutely central to understanding the immediate appeal. It's about smoothing out all those tedious, time-consuming steps that, they might be necessary parts of a process, but they aren't necessarily the most creative, strategic, or enjoyable part.
The grunt work.
Pretty much. The grunt work, the initial draft, the basic structure, the rote task AI takes those on, allowing you to jump further ahead in the process, often starting from a more developed point than you maybe could on your own, or at least much faster. It just lowers the barrier to getting started and completing those initial heavy lifts.
It really is like having a turbo boost button for so many tasks. And the analogy the source uses to capture this feeling, I thought this was good, is having a skilled assistant on demand anytime, anywhere.
That analogy really resonates, doesn't it? I mean, imagine having someone instantly available, 200/7, who can understand your request and just immediately start working on it, drafting that difficult email you've been putting off.
We've all been there.
Right. Or brainstorming 50 headline variations in 30 seconds, or creating a visual concept sketch based purely on your verbal description. This material suggests that this capability feels incredibly empowering for individuals.
Yeah, I can see that.
It allows someone working alone to potentially achieve output volumes or quality levels that previously would have required a whole team or specialized software knowledge or, frankly, years of experience. It truly enables individuals to, as the source puts it, punch above their weight class or scale their personal output in ways that were previously just unimaginable for a solo operator or maybe a small team.
It certainly feels like gaining superpowers for your workflow sometimes. So, thinking about your own experience, if you've used these AI tools, have you felt this friction removal? Have you experienced that sense of having an instant skilled assistant right there at your fingertips, allowing you to start faster or complete tasks you might have struggled with before? That's the very real, very tangible upside that the source material uses as its starting point.
Okay, so the speed and the efficiency, we agree, are undeniable. The promise of AI as a productivity booster is real, and the source fully acknowledges that. But this is where the paradox truly begins to unfold, and where the material shifts focus to explore what it calls the creative dependence.
The flip side. Exactly. This is the potential downside, the hidden cost it warns us about.
Yeah, and this section introduces the core risk identified in the material. It basically posits that as we become increasingly reliant on AI, delegating more and more tasks to these external models, we run a pretty significant risk.
Which is?
The risk of losing depth in our understanding, eroding the discipline required to tackle challenging problems ourselves, and ultimately diminishing our personal mastery over the very skills that form the foundation of our expertise.
And the mechanism behind this creep, it seems pretty clear when you think about it, doesn't it? If a tool consistently does a task for you, well, you stop needing to practice the skills required to perform that task yourself.
Use it or lose it.
Exactly. And skills like muscles, they can atrophy if they aren't used.
Precisely.
Right.
And the source material provides some pretty compelling use cases to illustrate how this happens in practice. Consider the realm of idea generation and content creation. The material describes a scenario involving, say, a content strategist. Previously, the strategist might spend days, maybe even weeks, really wrestling with a complex topic, doing deep research, exploring different angles, letting ideas percolate.
That messy, frustrating part.
Yeah, engaging in that difficult, often frustrating, but ultimately really fruitful struggle phase of creative work to develop a truly unique perspective. That internal grappling that often precedes a breakthrough.
Gotcha.
But now, according to the material, the same strategist might simply type a few keywords into a generative AI and maybe settle for the first few outputs that seem plausible or adequate.
Just good enough.
Kind of. And while this is undeniably faster, moving from prompt to outline in minutes instead of days, the source argues that it often results in content that is safe, predictable, maybe a bit formulaic.
Lacking that edge.
Exactly. It lacks the unique insights, the unexpected connections, the depth of understanding that emerges from that deeper, more difficult human process. The AI provides an answer, sure, but it might bypass the journey required to find your unique answer. That really resonates. It's like getting a quickly assembled meal instead of one that has been slow cooked and infused with unique flavors. The material also uses the stark example of students.
Yes, the student example is presented as a pretty clear illustration of potential skill erosion. Using AI to write essays or generate summaries of readings, well, it might lead to superficially better grades in the short term. The output is often grammatically correct, covers the basic points,
Looks good on paper.
looks good. However, the source material cautions that this can simultaneously undermine the student's ability to form their own original arguments, to critically evaluate and synthesize information from diverse sources independently.
The core skills of learning.
Right, or even just to develop the discipline required for focused reading and analytical thinking. They get the product, the essay, or the summary, but they miss the crucial process that builds intellectual muscle and cognitive resilience. So it's not just about the deliverable, the thing you hand in. It's about the developmental process that creating that deliverable used to require. The material captures this danger perfectly with the phrase, convenience becomes complacency.
That phrase is a powerful warning, isn't it? The initial convenience offered by AI is incredibly seductive. Who doesn't want things to be easier?
Right.
But if we're not conscious and deliberate in how we use it, that convenience can very easily, maybe even without us noticing, lead to a state of complacency. We stop pushing ourselves to do the hard parts of the work.
The parts that make us grow.
The very parts that force us to think deeply, to learn, to develop our capabilities. The source material really emphasizes that this isn't about the tool being inherently bad, it's about delegation without engagement.
Delegation without engagement.
Okay. It's when we delegate a task without staying engaged with the underlying skills or understanding that those skills begin to wither away. It's about recognizing that the act of doing the task contributes to your personal growth and expertise in ways the AI output alone simply cannot.
That feels like a fundamental human truth, doesn't it? Not just about AI. Anything you outsource completely, you risk losing the ability to do yourself. It's like relying solely on GPS and forgetting how to read a map or even just navigate your own city.
Exactly that kind of thing.
So, reflecting on your own AI usage, have you ever caught yourself reaching for the tool a little too quickly? Perhaps bypassing that initial phase of struggle or deep thinking or wrestling with a problem that, intellectually is important for building your own capacity, but the AI just makes it so easy to skip. That's the creep the source material is really highlighting.
Okay, so building on this idea of potential erosion, the material explores another critical question related to our output, the stuff we actually create. And it asks, are we truly creating something new, or are we maybe just copying faster? This dives right into the impact AI has on creativity itself.
Right. And the material presents, a nuanced perspective here. It acknowledges that AI absolutely can be a powerful tool for enhancing creativity. No doubt about it.
How so? Well, it can act as a brainstorming partner, help visualize nascent ideas really quickly, or provide variations on a theme you might not have thought of on your own. It can break you out of a rut sometimes.
Okay, so that's the enhancement side.
That's the enhancement side. However, it also poses a significant risk that AI can, paradoxically, flatten creativity.
Flatten it. That seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
With the idea of infinite image generation or endless text possibilities, what does the material mean by flattening?
Well, the explanation provided is essentially this. Because these large AI models are trained on truly vast data sets of existing human-created content, every image, every piece of text, every line of code they've been fed.
Everything that's out there.
Pretty much. Their outputs are inherently based on identifying and reproducing patterns and probabilities found within that existing data. Now, they can combine these elements in novel ways, sure, but there's an underlying tendency for the results to gravitate towards the statistically probable, the recognizable aesthetic, the sort of average of the training data. The risk, as the source material argues, is that we end up simply recycling existing culture and aesthetics, creating variations on known themes, rather than genuinely inventing something fundamentally new, something that really breaks the mold of what's come before.
That's a really powerful point. Instead of truly pushing the boundaries of culture or thought, we might just be, rearranging the existing furniture with incredible speed and maybe a slightly different style.
That's a good way to put it. And the material offers some very visual examples of this flattening effect.
Like what?
Yes, perhaps the most prominent one, especially in the last year or so, is with visual creation tools like Midjourney or Stable Diffusion. You see it all over.
Yeah.
The material notes the phenomenon of social media feeds becoming increasingly, it uses the word flooded, with similar AI-generated imagery. It describes how certain styles quickly become prevalent and repetitive things like, dreamlike, ethereal landscapes or cyberpunk cityscapes bathed in neon light or specific anime-inspired
Oh,
aesthetics.
yeah, you definitely see trends.
Exactly. The source material is careful to say these images can be technically beautiful, even stunning sometimes, but the key characteristic it highlights is the repetition. There is a visual homogenization happening, an AI look that becomes recognizable very quickly.
Oh, I've absolutely seen that.
Yeah.
You scroll through Instagram or ArtStation or wherever, and you start to recognize that specific digital polish, the lighting styles, the often surreal subjects that feel distinctly AI generated. It's like a new aesthetic has emerged. But because the tools are so accessible and trained on similar data, it just quickly becomes oversaturated with variations on the same few themes.
Exactly. And the material links this back to the creative process as well, not just the output.
How so?
It suggests that for writers, artists, musicians, or really anyone involved in ideation, there's a growing tendency to kind of prompt their way through the initial creative hurdle.
Hmm.
Instead of facing the daunting challenge of a blank canvas or a silent page, engaging in the deep, often painful process of internal exploration, subconscious connection, trial and error that really characterizes human creativity. The hard part. The hard part. They might simply describe their desired outcome to an AI and then iterate on the generated results.
And the materials argument, then, is that this bypasses that essential struggle phase we talked about earlier, the wrestling.
Precisely. And this is a fundamental point made in the source material. Creativity isn't just the final product you present to the world. It is, in large part, the process you undertake to get there.
Right.
The wrestling with constraints, the unexpected detours, the moments of frustration and breakthrough, the unique synthesis of your life experiences and knowledge. That difficult, messy, often non-linear path is what frequently leads to truly original insights, unique artistic voices, and groundbreaking ideas. The AI shortcut, while incredibly efficient for producing an outcome, can sometimes bypass or diminish the value of that crucial human journey.
That distinction between outcome efficiency and process value feels really key here.
Hmm.
The tool makes the output faster, maybe even easier, but it might skip the very part of the work that makes the output genuinely creative and uniquely yours.
Well said.
So, reflecting on your own creative projects or brainstorming sessions, have you noticed this trend towards homogenization, either maybe in your own work if you use AI or just in the content you're seeing out there, or have you felt your own creative process shifting, perhaps leaning more on prompting AI for initial ideas rather than diving into that internal wrestling match that may be used to define the start of a new project? Something to think about. All right, this next major point from the source material, it really ties everything together and challenges perhaps the most fundamental assumption about AI adoption. The widely celebrated myth of time saved.
The time-saving paradox.
Exactly. The source looks at all this increased speed and efficiency we've been talking about and asks a really pointed question. Okay, AI helps you do things faster, it removes friction, you can generate more in less time. But what are we actually doing with all that supposedly saved time?
This is where the source material becomes particularly critical, I think, and quite thought-provoking. It argues that simply because AI frees up time on specific tasks doesn't automatically translate into that time being reinvested into, say, meaningful work, strategic thinking, or significant progress.
Right.
The central observation it makes is that all too often, this saved time is simply filled with more shallow work, more low-value activity, rather than enabling deeper focus or more impactful contributions.
That's a challenging idea to accept, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially if you felt that immediate benefit of getting tasks done faster. What's the core problem the source identifies here? It sounds like it's drawing a line between just being busy and actually being effective.
That's exactly right. The core problem, as presented in this material, is the critical distinction it draws between productivity and progress.
Productivity versus progress. Okay, tell me more.
So productivity in this context is defined as simply doing more tasks or completing tasks at a higher speed. And AI is excellent at boosting this kind of productivity, task throughput.
Check on the to-do list.
Right. But progress, as the source defines it, is about achieving meaningful goals, moving towards significant strategic objectives, or enabling real personal or organizational growth. The material argues that AI provides incredible tools for increasing productivity, that past throughput, but it offers no inherent guarantee that this productivity will actually translate into genuine progress, meaningful forward momentum.
Ah, okay, I see the distinction. So you can become this whirlwind of activity, checking off an enormous number of items from your to-do list, generating endless drafts, processing vast amounts of information, all with AI's help, but not actually getting any closer to the outcomes that truly matter in the long run.
Precisely.
Does the source provide specific examples of this phenomenon?
Yes, it paints a picture that might feel uncomfortably familiar to many people working today. One example it gives is the employee who leverages AI to summarize meeting transcripts and process email backlogs really quickly.
Okay, saving time there.
On the surface, yes, they've saved hours previously spent on reading and synthesizing all that info. But the source observes that the same employee might then feel paradoxically more obligated or maybe empowered to attend even more meetings or subscribe to even more information streams.
Oh, interesting. Why?
Perhaps operating under the maybe subconscious illusion that, oh, it's okay, the AI will handle the synthesis anyway. So the result isn't more focused time for strategic work. It's actually an increase in participation in potentially less impactful activities, fueled by the AI's ability to process the inputs faster.
Wow.
It leads to more inputs and outputs, but not necessarily more strategic insight or dedicated decision-making time.
That really highlights the point vividly. The AI handled the summary, the processing, but didn't necessarily free up the mental space or the calendar time for the human to then act on that information in a meaningful way. It just kind of created capacity to absorb more inputs.
Exactly. Another example the source provides centers on freelancers or perhaps individuals managing their own projects, maybe using a whole suite of AI tools like Notion AI for planning, writing, generating business strategies, that kind of thing.
Right, the solo operators.
Yeah. The source observes that while these individuals gain incredible speed in outlining projects, drafting proposals, or researching market ideas, they might end up creating more potential projects or generating more ideas than they can realistically execute.
Getting overwhelmed by possibility.
Potentially, they get trapped in what the source calls an endless cycle of idea generation and preliminary planning without actually translating that high-speed ideation into completed work, into finished products or services.
So the AI makes it super easy to start things, right? Ideation and planning become incredibly fast, almost frictionless. But it doesn't necessarily help with the much harder work of focused execution and actually seeing things through to completion.
Precisely. And the source material's key takeaway here is presented as a pretty stark equation. Productivity at progress.
Productivity does not equal progress.
That's the central argument driving this whole section. Merely increasing the speed at which tasks are completed does not, by itself, equate to achieving meaningful goals or making significant advancements. The source really emphasizes that the time saved by AI is not automatically productive time. It must be time reinvested mindfully, consciously, without deliberate direction, without a specific decision about where that newfound capacity is channeled. The source warns that it doesn't lead to valuable outcomes. Instead, it often just fuels more noise.
More noise.
Yeah, an increase in overall busyness, activity, output volume, but maybe lacking substance, focus, or genuine impact.
More noise. That's a powerful and slightly unsettling image for that feeling of being overwhelmed by a constant stream of tasks, notifications, generated content, even while using tools that are supposed to make you more efficient. So ask yourself this. Have you ever felt busier because of the AI? Generating more ideas, attending more things, processing more information, but not actually feeling like you're making significantly more progress on your truly important, impactful work? Or when AI genuinely saves you time on a task, does that time reliably translate into focused, meaningful work afterwards? Or does it often just get swallowed up by, well, more tasks being added to your plate? This whole discussion leads us to a really crucial turning point in the source materials analysis. After laying out the immense upside and all these potential pitfalls, it shifts the focus away from the AI tools themselves and squarely onto the person using them.
Right, the human element.
Exactly. It argues that ultimately, the impact of AI on productivity, on creativity, it isn't determined by the technology itself, but by you. It's about where you, the human, choose to draw the line.
Yeah, this section is really all about human agency, isn't it? Intentionality, self-awareness in this age of AI. The source material presents several critical questions that serve as really powerful prompts for self-reflection. They encourage listeners, readers, all of us to honestly evaluate our own relationship with these tools.
And these questions, they get right to the heart of navigating the paradox we've been discussing all along.
They really do.
Let's look at those critical questions the source poses. The first one is, are we still learning or just prompting?
Oof. That question immediately highlights the difference between using AI as a tool for learning versus using it as just a replacement for learning, doesn't it? Are you using the AI's explanation or maybe its code suggestion as a starting point to understand the underlying concept more deeply? Are you researching further, testing it, integrating it into your existing knowledge base? Or are you simply typing commands, accepting the output without much question, and bypassing the difficult but necessary process of genuine comprehension and skill acquisition? It really asks whether the tool is facilitating your development or just allowing you to circumvent it.
That distinction is absolutely vital. It's the difference between using AI to help you understand, say, a complex mathematical proof versus just asking it for the answer to a homework problem so you can hand it in.
Exactly.
The next question is equally probing. Are we thinking or letting the model think for us?
Yeah, this gets at the core of cognitive engagement. Is the AI serving as a catalyst for your own critical thinking process? Is it maybe a sounding board that helps you explore different perspectives or challenge your own assumptions or refine your argument
Using it actively.
actively? Or are you simply outsourcing the cognitive heavy lifting? Are you relying on the AI's output as the final word, accepting its generated responses without applying your own judgment, your own context, your own critical evaluation? It's the difference between using AI to help you think better and using it perhaps to avoid thinking at all.
Wow. And the third powerful question the source asks for personal reflection is, are we improving or just outsourcing?
This is maybe the most direct question about the long-term personal impact, right? When you use an AI tool for a specific task, is that usage making you a more capable, more skilled, more insightful, more effective individual over time? Is it genuinely helping you expand your own abilities? Or is it simply enabling you to offload tasks without demanding any growth or improvement from yourself? Potentially even preventing you from developing crucial skills that the task would otherwise build. It really challenges you to consider if the tool is fostering personal mastery or just serving as a kind of crutch that prevents you from strengthening your own capabilities.
These are not comfortable questions, are they? But they feel incredibly necessary in this AI-saturated environment we're all navigating.
Absolutely.
The source material provides a really compelling example to illustrate the different answers one might give to these questions, using the scenario of coding with an AI tool like, say, GitHub Copilot.
Yes, that's a very clear demonstration in the material. It contrasts how a junior developer might use Copilot versus how a senior developer might use the exact same tool.
Okay, how does that play out?
Well, a junior developer, someone still building their foundational understanding of programming languages, logic, best practices, they might rely quite heavily on Copilot's code suggestions. They might copy and paste code snippets without fully understanding why they work or how they fit into the larger program structure.
Just grabbing the code.
Pretty much. In this scenario, the source suggests they are primarily prompting for solutions, they're outsourcing the core thinking and understanding, and potentially hindering their own long-term learning process. They aren't necessarily improving their fundamental coding skills, they're merely getting to an outcome faster via delegation.
Okay, so that's the junior developer.
Yeah.
But a senior developer uses the same tool differently.
Precisely, according to the source. A senior developer who already possesses a deep understanding of the underlying programming principles, common patterns, debugging strategies, system architecture, they use Copilot much more strategically.
Wow.
They might use it to quickly generate boilerplate code they've written 1,000 times before, or to autocomplete repetitive patterns, or maybe just to quickly look up syntax they momentarily forget. They are using Copilot to amplify their existing speed and their existing knowledge base, not to replace their fundamental understanding or their problem-solving ability. They remain firmly in the driver's seat, directing the AI, reviewing its suggestions critically, and integrating them into a system they fully comprehend. They're using it to make their existing edge sharper, not to create an edge they don't have.
That contrast is really illuminating. It's not just about having the tool. It's about your existing skill level and, crucially, your approach to using the tool.
Absolutely. And that difference highlights the source material's main takeaway from this whole section. It concludes that AI doesn't have some intrinsic, predetermined effect on your skills or your ability to think deeply. Its impact is entirely mediated by how you choose to use it.
So it's on us.
It's on us. The source argues that AI can either amplify your existing strengths, making you faster, more efficient, more capable of the things you're already good at, or it can amplify your weaknesses. It can allow you to avoid developing skills where you lack proficiency, thereby making you more dependent and potentially less capable in the long run. It's not the tool's capability that's the sole determinant. It's the user's intention, their skill level, and their self-awareness that ultimately shape the outcome.
That really shifts the responsibility squarely back onto us, doesn't it? It's not about whether AI is good or bad in some kind of vacuum,
Hmm.
but about the conscious decisions we make about how we integrate it into our work, our learning, our creative processes.
Hmm.
So as you think about the AI tools you use, or might use in the future, and considering those critical questions from the source, are you using them in a way that helps you learn, encourages your own thinking, and contributes to your improvement? Or are you finding yourself primarily just prompting, letting the model think for you, and outsourcing tasks in a way that feels less like growth and more like avoidance?
Hmm.
It's a powerful framework for personal assessment, that's for sure. So if AI presents this really multifaceted paradox, offering incredible power but also carrying these significant risks, and if the ultimate impact depends so heavily on us, the user, what does the source material suggest is the most effective way to navigate this landscape? It proposes a strategy, a framework really, that it calls the balance model.
Yes, this section moves nicely from the diagnosis of the problem to suggesting a practical strategy. The balance model is presented as the source's recommended approach for harnessing AI's power while actively mitigating those risks of dependence and skill erosion we've been talking about.
Okay.
And the core principle underpinning this whole model is using AI for augmentation, meaning enhancing human capabilities and potential, rather than abdication, meaning entirely giving up responsibility, effort, or the exercise of one's own skills.
Augmentation, not abdication. That's a concise and powerful framing, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are the specific strategies recommended within this balance model according to the source material?
Well, the material outlines several pretty actionable approaches. First, it strongly suggests using AI for scaffolding, not final drafts.
Scaffolding, like building support.
Exactly. This means leveraging AI for those initial, often time-consuming steps. Generating a basic structure, creating outlines, brainstorming raw ideas, producing initial rough drafts, or quickly summarizing large amounts of information just to get a starting point. But, and this is the critical part, the human remains firmly in control of the final output.
So you don't just take what it gives you.
No. You take the AI's output, the scaffolding, and then you rewrite it, you refine it, you infuse it with your unique voice, you apply your critical judgment for accuracy and nuance, and you add the personal insights that only you can bring. The AI helps build the frame, but you are the architect and the builder of the finished product.
Okay, so it's about using the AI to accelerate the start, maybe get over that initial hump, but not to complete the journey for you. What else does the source recommend for this balance model?
Another key strategy highlighted is intentionally reserving time for what the source calls AI off deep work.
AI off, deep work. I like the
Oh.
sound of that.
Yeah. It means deliberately setting aside periods where you unplug from the AI tools and engage in tasks that specifically require your focused concentration, your own problem-solving abilities, and the application of your skills without the immediate availability of automated assistance. This dedicated time is presented as crucial for preventing skill atrophy, for building intellectual stamina, and for engaging in the kind of complex problem-solving or creative work that AI, frankly, isn't suited for, or that you simply need to be able to do yourself to maintain your edge.
That makes perfect sense. It's like deliberate practice. You need to actively exercise the skills you don't want to lose. What other points are made in this model?
The material emphasizes the importance of ongoing reflection on your AI usage. Constant self-checking almost.
Reflection, how so?
It encourages a conscious evaluation of why you are reaching for an AI tool for a particular task at a particular moment. Are you using it because it genuinely makes you more capable in that moment, allowing you to achieve a higher quality outcome, explore more options, or work significantly faster while still maintaining your understanding and control? Or are you using it simply because it allows you to avoid the effort, the difficulty, or the intellectual struggle that the task would otherwise require? This self-awareness is presented as a vital skill in itself in this new landscape.
So it's about being really honest with yourself about your motivations for using the tool. Are you using it to become better or just to make things easier in a way that might actually be detrimental to your long-term growth?
Exactly. And closely tied to that point, the source material highlights the importance of actively cultivating what it terms meta skills.
Meta skills. What are those?
These are the higher level cognitive and interpersonal skills that AI, at least in its current form, really struggles to replicate or replace. Think about skills like advanced critical thinking, the ability to understand and navigate complex, messy, real-world contexts, synthesizing disparate information with nuanced human judgment.
Things humans are good at.
Things humans are uniquely good at. Emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, and generating truly novel, unpredictable, human-centric creativity. The source suggests that focusing on developing these capabilities ensures that your unique value proposition extends far beyond what AI can easily automate or replicate.
Those sound like the very skills needed to effectively direct and make the most of AI, rather than just being passive recipients of its output.
Precisely.
The source provides another practical example, doesn't it, to illustrate this balance model. Something about an entrepreneurial workflow.
Yes, it uses the scenario of a startup founder drafting investor pitches. The source describes how this founder uses a tool like ChatGPT to generate initial drafts of the pitch deck content, or maybe the script for presentation. The AI quickly provides a basic structure, outlines key points, generates paragraphs of text as the heavy lifting up front.
Okay, standard use case.
Right. But, and this is the critical step in the balance model, the founder doesn't just take the AI's output and run with it. They take that scaffolding and then they heavily rewrite and refine it.
Why? What do they add?
They add the human element. They infuse it with their personal passion, their deep understanding of their specific business's unique value proposition, their authentic voice, and the specific emotional nuances required to genuinely connect with and persuade potential investors. Those are things the AI can't replicate authentically.
Oh, this perfectly illustrates that scaffolding principle we talked about.
Right.
AI got them maybe, I don't know, 80% of the way there in terms of structure and basic content, saving significant time on that initial painful draft.
Right.
But the founder did the crucial final 20%, the part that made the pitch authentic, compelling, and ultimately effective. The AI accelerated the start, but the human provided the core substance and the emotional resonance.
Absolutely. And this leads directly to the material's powerful concluding takeaway for this section on finding balance. It's a principle that really guides the entire balance model. AI should sharpen your edge, not become your crutch.
Sharpen your edge, not become your crutch. I like that.
Yeah. The goal is to use AI in a way that makes you more effective, more capable, more creative, and faster at what you do. It should enhance your existing skills and allow you to reach new levels of performance, essentially sharpening your edge. It should not become something you lean on so heavily, particularly for fundamental skills or core thinking processes, that your own abilities dull or atrophy, rendering you dependent, becoming a crutch.
That distinction feels incredibly important as we navigate this. Is this tool genuinely enabling me to do more and be better, or is it just doing the work for me in a way that might actually make me weaker over time?
Precisely. And the source's final point in this discussion of the balance model reinforces this idea of human control and intentionality. It concludes that the most powerful and effective users of AI are those who consciously remain firmly in the driver's seat.
Steering the ship.
Exactly. They are the ones guiding the process, setting the direction, applying their judgment, critically evaluating the output, and ultimately owning the outcome. The AI is a powerful vehicle at their disposal, absolutely, but they're the ones navigating, steering, and deciding the destination.
That's a great analogy to summarize the whole approach. It puts the emphasis squarely back on human skill, human judgment, and human decision-making. So, thinking about your own work, your learning, your creative pursuits, how could you start implementing some of these strategies from the balance model? Where can you make a conscious effort to use AI as a co-pilot, assisting you in the process, rather than letting it become an autopilot that takes over completely? So we've journeyed through the landscape presented by this really fascinating source material today. We began by acknowledging the very real, very bright promise of AI, the incredible speed it offers, its ability to remove friction from countless tasks, and that feeling of having an instant skilled assistant right at our beck and call.
The initial wow factor.
Exactly. We then delved into the other side of the coin, the potential shadow side that forms the core of the paradox. That creep of dependence, the risk of losing depth in our skills, and maybe discipline in our approach. The possibility that instead of generating true novelty, we might simply be contributing to a kind of flattening of creativity by just recycling existing patterns faster. And that challenge to the very notion of time saved, when that freed up time often just gets filled with more low-value noise.
Right. And crucially, the material then pivoted, didn't it? It placed the responsibility squarely back on the individual, challenging all of us with those critical questions about whether we are using AI to truly learn, think, and improve, or simply prompting, outsourcing, and letting the model do the heavy cognitive work for us.
Which led us to the proposed solution, that balance model, advocating for augmentation over abdication, emphasizing strategies like using AI for scaffolding, prioritizing that AI off deep work, conscious reflection, and cultivating those essential meta skills.
Yep, bringing it all together.
Which brings us full circle, doesn't it? Right back to that fundamental question the source introduced at the very beginning, and which it really leaves us contemplating at the conclusion. Is AI ultimately making us lazy, or is it making us liberated?
And the material's distilled answer, drawn from its comprehensive analysis, seems pretty clear. It is not an inevitability one way or the other. It entirely depends on you.
It's our choice.
It's our choice. AI is undeniably a powerful force multiplier, perhaps one of the most significant we've encountered in decades. It possesses the genuine capability to make us faster, to free up our time from tedious drudgery, and even to enhance our creative process by offering new starting points or accelerating exploration. It presents a tangible potential for liberation from repetitive tasks and creative blocks.
What?
But the source material is equally emphatic that the risk of the opposite outcome is just as real. The risk of becoming passive recipients of AI output, easily distracted by the endless stream of possibilities it generates, disconnected from the fundamental skills, the deep processes, the intellectual struggle that have historically led to true mastery, genuine insight, and original contribution. That risk is significant and ever-present if we are not intentional.
The paradox, then, isn't really some inherent flaw in the AI itself that dictates our future.
No, the source material argues that the paradox resides in the human response to this powerful technology. The question isn't really about whether AI is intrinsically good or bad for productivity or creativity in the abstract. It is, at its core, about the active, conscious choices we make, individually and collectively, in how we choose to engage with these tools, how we integrate them into our lives, and importantly, what we demand of ourselves in their presence.
It really does all come down to who remains in control of the process. And the final lingering question that the source material leaves us with, the one it encourages you to really ponder long after this deep dive is over, is this. Are you still leading the process, or are you just watching the output?
A thought that certainly gives pause.